In today's video, I want to show you how I turned the front of my house into a holiday light show synced to music. Up next. Hey everyone, my name is Jeff, and on this channel I do all sorts of different tech reviews, do-it-yourself projects, even holiday decor videos. In this particular video, I am talking about how I turned the front of my house into a musical Christmas light show where I've got smart light bulbs that are changing colors to the beat of music, and it's all synced. It looks awesome. This is actually the second opportunity that I've had here to work on Christmas lighting for my house. If you're just seeing this video and you haven't watched my other video, I invite you to watch that video first on how last year I actually created a MegaTree. So it is a smart light bulb changing Christmas tree, just like I did with my house. It's called a MegaTree. That tree is 12.5 feet tall, and that's what actually started the same system that I'm using for my house. So I'd invite you to watch that video first. It'll be linked here in the cards or down in this video description. But that MegaTree is essentially what's controlling also the lighting that's on my house. So I had to come up with a chart to help me calculate numbers and keep my head straight. I'm going to link to all the stuff I'm talking about in this video down in the video description below. I had a great experience last year building my MegaTree working with a company called HolidayCoro. They sell some great product, as well as they've got very knowledgeable people at the company that are there to kind of help you with any step that you're at. So essentially, once I had my measurements, my design of where I was putting lights, next I needed to figure out how many lights I was going to be purchasing or ordering. Using the measurements, you can buy these smart pixel lights in sets of 50 or 100. These are 12-volt smart pixel bulbs. Again, these will be linked down in the description below. Essentially, you can see this image here. This image shows the front of my house, took a nice clear picture, and then showed all the different measurements that I had taken, and I was able to essentially calculate how many pixels were going to go on each area of my house. Now, these were rough estimates. Everything that's in red are all the different dimensions and inches of all those different spaces. Everything you see in blue are all the calculated pixels that I figured were going to be needed for each space. In order to line your house with lights, you need to power them. And I was able to use the existing computer or controller that I had purchased when I was building my MegaTree to allow me to control the lights for my house. And real quick, as we do in all the videos on this channel, we've hidden Tinker. Tinker is our little hidden robot, and he briefly pops up in all the videos on this channel, including this video. So keep your eyes open for Tinker popping up, and if you are the first person to let me know the timestamp, that is the amount of time into this video that you spot Tinker popping up, I will put your name on our Tinker Forward Hall of Fame page, as well as give you a shout out in one of my future videos. You can see in this picture, I'm controlling the show from a laptop computer. That is then following that line over to the pixel tree, which has the HinksPix controller in it, and that box is mounted on my pixel tree. That's what's controlling that. Now this year I also added some stars to the top of the tree, which also I didn't have enough ports coming out of that MegaTree box. So I have a long-range receiver, which that long-range receiver is just another power box with inputs for Cat 5 cable, which is how you transfer data from one box to another. So I am running a physical Cat 5 wire from my laptop to the controller in the pixel tree, and then out of the pixel tree controller to the different long-range receivers that I have. So you can see that there's a long-range receiver there by L.R. for the tree stars, and then there's another long-range receiver for the house. That is the L.R. You can see the LR Smart for the house. And then I am using another long-range receiver, which is configured differently for the graves I have for our Halloween show, because the graves that we have are not smart bulbs. They're actually dumb, just turning on and off regular sets of LED lights that help me keep the cost down for the graves. Now, at some point, I may upgrade those graves to more of a RGB smart bulb design, but I was able to do essentially 16 different graves for the price of just putting a cheap LED strand around the border of them. From here, we jump back to the schematic of the front of my house, and you'll notice that there's that green box that is on my front porch. That is essentially the long-range receiver that's getting the data for the lights from my main CPU on the MegaTree. The box, that long-range receiver, actually has 8 different ports coming out of it, pigtails that connect to each strand of lights. The pigtails are nice because they waterproof the connections coming out of that long-range receiver box to each strand of lights. And then, kind of like different tentacles coming out of an octopus, I have 8 different ports coming out of this box that I had to spread out around my house to power the different areas. Now, I'm only running my show at 50% brightness, and you can change that in the settings on your controller. It's still plenty bright, but essentially you're limited to 200 pixels per run coming out of this long-range receiver box. So what that means is that if I have all these different pixels as part of my show, I have to cap off each run coming out of the power box at 200 pixels, unless I'm going to use another system, which is power injection, which I'm not going that route. So as you look at this image, you'll see that each green line coming out of the green box, the long-range receiver, has a number associated with it, and then that green line runs to different parts of my house, and it powers that many pixels. So I couldn't have more than 200 pixels on a run. So as an example, you'll notice, let's take run number 1, which is running right next to my front door. It runs up, and then it runs along the roof ridge all the way to the top corner on the north side of my house. It's powering the pixels that are just on part of my roof ridge, and then I'm running another extension to power all the lights of that upper window, and then another extension off of that window to power the lights that are on that top roof peak. That is all on one run from the box. If we go to line number 2, which is going down out of the box across the concrete of my front porch, you'll notice that that line's going to the lower window running over to the north side run of my house, and then it stops right there. So I've got runs 3, 4, 5, 6. I actually still have 2 runs coming out of that long-range receiver box that are still available if I'm going to add any props like candy canes, snowflakes, or something in the coming years. I can use those other 2 ports coming out of that long-range receiver to power those props at a later point. And take a second right now and smash that like button if you're enjoying this video, you're getting some value. I greatly appreciate it. So now I've got a very good idea of how I'm going to power all the lights, how many pixels I'm going to need. I can go ahead and order all that stuff. So I also ordered pixel trim, and actually if you call HolidayCoro, if you talk to them, they'll help you through this whole process if you're planning on lining this stuff for your house. If you want to do it yourself, you're going to need to calculate roughly how many how much lineage of this pixel trim Coro material you're going to need so that you've got enough to line all the different areas of your house. I made a couple of mistakes as I was cutting different pieces and stuff, so when you're ordering this, you probably want to give yourself some sort of margin of error you know, maybe add an extra 10-20% lights, as well as 10 to 20% of this pixel trim material. In case you screw up, you've got some extra. But this is what I'm punching all the lights through, is just this piece of plastic, but it's very flexible and it's pretty heavy duty. All right, so now the fun part. Everything arrived, and I've just got these bunches of lights, and I would need to use this Coro to punch the lights through. Now there is a pixel pliers that you can also purchase that makes things a little bit easier. But essentially, there's a lot of time that you're going to need to dedicate to punching these pixels through this Coro material. So let's talk about attaching all of these lights to my house. So you use the pixel trim system that HolidayCoro has, which is their Coro material that you punch all the lights through. And from that point, you now have the lights attached to that piece of Coro. The piece of Coro then gets zip tied to a 1/2-inch piece of PVC pipe. Now I had to buy, boy, they come in 10-foot pieces. You can just go to your local hardware store like Home Depot, Lowe's, and I purchased a whole bunch of runs of PVC pipe. I probably purchased more than I needed and then just returned whatever I didn't use. But essentially you then cut the PVC pipe to the length of whatever your measurement is, going around the windows, going around the roof ridges, and then buying zip ties. And I can't even tell you how many zip ties I have now because I purchased a ton of them. And then as you're trimming them up and snipping them, they just get everywhere. Instead of like individually putting each light up, you're putting up sections of it. So it makes putting it up and taking it down quite efficient, much quicker than traditional Christmas lights where they have all these clips that you have to insert. I don't even want to deal with all those clips. This is a much easier system. So how do you attach the PVC pipe to your house? So there are these PVC clips you can also get from HolidayCoro, these clear clips that just use one screw. It's a number 8 by 2-inch screw that I used and just drilled into the different areas that I was going to be fastening the Coro and the lights to. And then about every 3 feet or so, I put a clip. So around the windows, on the roof ridge, and then from that point, when I had all those clips in, I then was able to take my piece of Coro and snap it with the PVC pipe into whatever part of the house I was going to be lighting up. Here's an example of one of the sketches that I put together. I just drew different lines representing 100 strands of lights, and then I labeled where each part of that strand was going to go so that when I would cut a strand apart, you'll see here that first strand, that entire strand is being devoted to the window upper left. And that second strand is devoted to the window upper right. And then I'm breaking apart that next strand of 100 lights so that essentially 32 of them are going to each one of the window peaks for a total of 64. And then I was left over with some lights that I was going to then add on to my main roof line. So every time you cut these strands of lights apart, you have to figure out how you're going to connect them, and those same pigtail connections that are coming out of those long-range receiver boxes, you can buy extras of those and then add them on to the different ends of your light strands. I actually broke each one of the windows, the bordering of the lights going around the windows, into 2 pieces. So you might have like an upper corner and then a bottom opposite corner with lights, and then they'd connect at the opposing corners using those pigtails. So with the way I figured it out, I was able to finish using up one of the 100 sets, and then I'm using this port from this set, and that gets me to here, and that's all the lights that I need for this run. The rest of these lights I have I've designated for the peaks on the house, so I'm gonna have to cut this. Oh, I hate to cut this. It's such a nice string, like it's so nicely laid out. It's all nice. You know, I'll have to heat shrink these two together, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Ah, this pains me to cut this. Ah, But now I'm going to use these at another part, and we're going to heat shrink these together. That was done by splicing the wires, and there's 3 different wires. There's a positive, negative, and a data cable that is what powers all the lights across the entire house. So I got really good at having to split up, cut those bulbs, and then splice not only different sections of bulbs together, but also different connector pieces. So then I use a program called XLights, which is free. You can go to xlights.org to download it. Actually did another video that shows more in depth how to set up the MegaTree, but essentially using that same system, I then laid out the lights for my house in XLights. So when I received this unit, you go through the steps of setting it up, and you have to assign it an IP address. Once you assign it an IP address, that is going to allow you to talk to that controller to do the configuration. And I'm just using a web browser, Google Chrome, and I typed in that IP address that's right up here. I put that in my address bar, and it's the same IP address that you see right here. And when I typed that in, that now brings up all my customization settings, so I can configure the controller to do what I needed to do for the particular setup that I have. Go to the Design tab, so you can see Long Range 1 is checked, SPI 1 and 2 are checked. I'm running the entire show at 50% intensity. Make sure you've got Long Range 1, SPI 1, SPI 2. Long range boards, you can check the schematic of how I have everything wired up, which is going to be right here. And this is going to show you that we've got our computer going to our HinksPix controller, and then out of that controller I'm going to 2 long range boards coming out of the port 2. Now this is not the output from the HinksPix. These are the long range outputs. There's 4 of them in the center of the controller box. This would be the MegaTree control box, but this is what has the HinksPix controller inside of it. Now from that point, I installed a long range board underneath the HinksPix. You can see it right here. It has 4 jacks on it. That's what this 1 and 2 is. So make sure you're not coming out of the output of the controller box. You're coming out of the 4 Cat 5 ports. This would be port 1, and then port 2 coming out of that. Port 2 is going to the long range receiver for the tree stars. So with that all kind of set up, you can see here I've got Cat 1 and Cat 2. This is actually Jack 1, Jack 2 set up, and then we've got Cat 1, Cat 2. When you check mark these, it makes all these other long range receiver cable 1 and cable 2 pop up. In the meantime, the SPIs here, this is what's controlling the MegaTree. You can see there are 32 outputs. There are 50 lights per output, so 150 channels total. Those are universes 1 through 32. After that, we go to the house outputs, and each particular run has so many lights, or so many pixels. You're actually timesing that by 3, and that's where I'm getting this number. Each run on the house is its own universe. So in XLights, you've got your different tabs. You first have to set up your controller. So I've got 42 universes. The first 32 are for the MegaTree, and then these are those numbers, the pixels in each run times 3. These all need to match up. Then you can go to layouts. So under layouts, I created a tree with 32 strands, so I can tap on this. You'll see 32 strands, 50 pixels per strand. That was just me going up here to the tree, creating a new tree. Then I went to all the different runs that are on my house. These runs that are connected like this is me drawing a polyline. Regular lines like this one are just a regular line, and then from here I went in and I actually selected each channel that everything's on. Ultimately, I'll show you just a couple of examples here of some of the sequences of the lights that I've done for my light show. I'm not going to actually play any of the songs that I used on this video because of copyright issues, but I've started a second channel just for my holiday lights. It is Tinkerford Holiday Lights, so on YouTube if you want to search for that, or just click through the links down in this video description, you can head over to that channel and you can see all the different videos of not only my pixel tree, but my house animated with all these pixel lights synced up to music. What's cool is I've got it all piped through an FM transmitter, so as people are driving by our house, they can just tune to 91.1, which is the radio station that I've got for our house in this area. And then from that point, they can listen from their cars to all the different music that the lights are animated to. They can find out more info on that whole process, as well as I've got all that talked about in my pixel tree video. So the possibilities are pretty much limitless, aside from how much money you want to spend and how much time you want to spend on this project. But when it all comes together, it is really cool. And for me, it's really gratifying not only to just see the show in action, but to see how it impacts others. I just think it's a lot of fun. So I'm interested to know your comments, your thoughts. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section below. And my name is Jeff. As always, I appreciate you watching. You definitely don't want to miss that MegaTree video if you haven't watched that yet, as well as my XLights sequencing video. Those will be linked at the end of this video or down in the video description below. Be sure to make every day awesome, and I will see you in the next video.